model, and then I'm going to take the rough model into a program called ZBrush and do like sculpting on it so we can add some of the fine details. Okay, so the easiest way to get started on any kind of character or model type stuff is to get reference images. So if this was a character references, if this was a job, and I did it again. There we go. If this was a job and you were given something like they want you to model something or build something, they would typically give you something like this, which is a character sheet. And so what this does is it shows you what the character looks like. In this case, it shows you what she looks like with their clothes off for some reason. They show something like this, different poses, different views. Okay, so you get a good idea of stuff. Now, the more views you have, typically the easier it is to match those up. Okay, so orthographic means like your front, side, and top view. That's what orthographic means, or what it means to us anyway. And so something like this, where we can see a 3/4 view, we can see a front view, we can see a side view, we can even see a back view. All of those views will help us build a decent character. Now we're only building the head and the shoulder area. So on Canvas I have a video that goes through how you would do the entire body. We're isolating it just to like the neck, shoulders, and above. So we don't need the whole thing. Now we don't want something like super simple like this. We want to add detail to our character. So I'm going to find something that's just of a head. There we go. So something very generic like this. Okay, so I'm going to save the picture and I'm just going to throw it on my desktop for now. And I'm going to go to Maya and I'm going to make a brand new project. So a new project, Sarcona character, Tuesday, Thursday. It goes in my work folder. I hit accept. And then I'm just going to take that image and I'm going to put it inside of my source images folder for that project. There we go. Okay, so now it's in my source images. Now this is my perspective view. I want to bring that image into my view so that I can use it to line up certain features that as I model it. I don't want to do that in perspective view because if I do, that image plane will get locked in here and I can't keep it locked. I want to keep it locked and be able to move around my object. So I'm going to switch to my front view and I'm going to go to View, Image Plane, Import Image, and I'm going to find that image. There it is. Okay, so here's the character. Now I can scale this up, I can move it down, I can do whatever I need to do. I'm also just going to go to this other program and just set my priority below normal. There we go. Alright, so there's the front view, so I can go to the front view. And it looks like there's like two different views here. I'm going to go with that one. Set that there, kind of lining up the center of this as best I can. Now I'm going to go to my side view, and I'll do the same thing. Import the image, and then put that here. Now there's no like easy way to kind of line up the front and the side. They're both like off right now. If I go to my perspective view, you can see how one is actually smaller than the other. So I'm just going to make this as big as I need to. I'm going to push my front view back like this. I'm going to push this view back like that. And then I can go back to my side view and just kind of line this up. Let me see if I can do this. Yep, there we go. So I'm going to negative scale that just because I want the face to go the other way. I like to have the front of the face going to the left. Alright, so that should be pretty good right there. And I believe that the height of this is about at the same spot. Okay, I can always adjust these two if I need to. Alright, so I have my image planes in here. Now I'm going to save my scene. Anytime you work with image planes inside Maya, that's one of those triggers that could cause everything just to deteriorate. So we save often. So Sarcona, character, model, 01, save. Now, just to kind of protect myself further, I'm going to go to my little gear guy down in the bottom right. I'm going to go to my files and projects, and I'm going to enable autosave. Remember this feature from like the second day of class when we started going through the Maya preferences? This allows me to automatically save every 5 minutes. So that way it won't crash. It may crash, but I'll only have to go back 5 minutes worth of work. Okay, so once that's on, I'm good to go. So I'm going to start modeling this. And the way you model a character, the way I model a character, is I start off with a cube. And I'm going to go to my view, and I'm just going to scale this up. Now what we have to keep in mind is that we don't want to add too much detail or too much geometry right off the bat. So it's very easy to go with something like this, add a whole bunch of divisions, and then we kind of screw ourselves as to what we can update and edit. So I'm going to go with this cube, and I'm just going to move some of these vertices around. So I'm just grabbing vertices, and I'm moving them to just certain parts of the character. So I have one basically like at the chin here, and I have one like at the back of the neck where it meets the skull. Maybe this one can come up here, maybe this one can go there. Okay? And what I'm doing is I'm kind of working out in my mind how the wireframe is going to go. Now this side having the wireframe and my other front view having the wireframe is definitely going to help kind of line things up too, because we can use that as reference. Now when I started this, I said we're not doing a human, but I brought human stuff inside here, okay? This is just to get the structure, it's just to get the layout of where the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and the head shape is. Once I have that, then I can start to customize it however I want. A lot of times you'll create a custom like default head, and then from that default head you can create 30 or 50 different shapes out of it. So I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go to my insert edge loops. Okay, so a couple of you may have seen me do this before. If I hold down shift and I hold down the right mouse button while in object mode, it brings up this menu, and this is like all the top things that we would typically be using for this. So I'm going to insert edge loops. You see the tools right there, a lot easier than having to go up top to grab it. So I'm going to add one division. I'm going to switch back to my vertice mode, and I'm going to move this into place. So I'm just going to move this maybe like right there where the forehead is. And then I'm going to grab this back one, and I'm going to move it into a position. Now I'm not going to do this. Look at where this line comes in. This line goes up, that line goes up, and then this line is kind of like hitting a weird angle. What they should do is kind of be parallel and flow along the surface of this, okay? So I want to have this kind of like evenly spaced between these two. All right. So I'm just going to kind of put that back about there. Then I'm going to go to my object mode again. I'm going to go to insert edge loop again. I'm going to get the height of this. So I'm going to add a division right about here, right about there. I'm going to switch back to vertice mode, and I'm just going to pull this up. Okay. Now this, I'm kind of angling this back and like this because I want to make sure that as I model my stuff, I'm able to, not that, there we go. I'm able to kind of capture some of these muscles in the head and neck. Okay, so you'll see this muscle right here. This is a pretty pronounced muscle that runs right along behind your ear and runs right down to your collarbone. If we don't have that, it's going to look kind of fake as we start modeling our stuff. Okay, it's a very pronounced thing on most people. So as I start to model my character, I want to start getting this in here by adding that division and having it flow into that area. I'm going to add another division right about there. And I'll pull this point up like this. And I'll pull this point maybe up like that. And that's going to be where the chin is. Cool. Okay, so I'm just kind of tweaking these and making sure that it's going to look good. I'm going to add another division right about, let's say, where the mouth line is. And I'll move that out here. I'll pull this behind the ear a little bit more, pull this back there. Alright, so there's my head shape so far. Now if I hit 3 on this, you can see that we're looking pretty blocky. All my editing I've done so far has been in one view. If you do too much editing in one view, it's going to basically make that side look perfectly flat, and we don't want that. We have to go into the other views and tweak the stuff from the other views. So if I jump to my front view, we can see that we are There's my autosave. Yes. We can see that we're maybe a little bit off because if I go to my side view, come on. If I go to my side view and hit 1, you'll see that this point right here is hitting the highest point of the head, and this point right here is hitting the lowest point of the jaw. So when I switch to my front view, that should also be happening. And if it's not, I need to move the image plane, not the vertices. Okay, and you can see that's definitely off. The chin one, it looks like it's good. Yes, that's the lowest point. But the height of it is not. So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to scale it down, and then I'm just going to move it in position. Keep doing that until I get it lined up. Now that could be off too, like this drawing could be off a little bit from one to the other. Like maybe that's not hitting it perfectly, it probably isn't. It's a little bit off there, but it'll be good enough. Okay, I'll just stick that right, there we go. Okay. Alright, so that's good. So now what I need to do is start shaping the head into that rounded shape, into like that circular shape on top and the pointy shape on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is, just like we did on the drone, there's no point in trying to edit both sides at the same time. We can just delete half of it and work on half of this. So I'm going to insert an edge loop right down the center. So I just click, I go to my split ring option box here, and I tell this to be 0.5. That way it goes right to the center of the head. Then I'm going to go to my face mode, come on, and delete all of that stuff. And then this is where those 4 views come in. It's kind of a rare thing that I'll use the 4 view, but for something like this, it really helps, because this way I can look at stuff in this view and say this is going to be right above the eyebrow. Where's right above the eyebrow? Oh, that's right here. This is going to be right in the middle of the forehead. Where's that at? And that's right about here. Now I have 2 points. Like if you, I'm going to dim this image a little bit. It's a little bit too dark for me, or a little bit too bright. So I'm just going to marquee it and then change the color gain down some. Makes it a little bit easier on the eyes. There we go. Good. Okay. So if I come over here and I go to vertex mode and I marquee these, see how it marquees these 2 points? The points that are on this edge, just like the drone, we don't want to ever move away from that center point. So I'm just going to deselect that one and just move this. So this is going to come in like that. Okay? Yeah, probably like that even more. Alright, so I can marquee this. This is a cheek bone, or a cheek pocket here, so let's push that into the cheek pocket area. Let's grab where the mouth is here, deselect this one, pull this one in more. This is the chin, pull that one in. That's the jaw back there, so we'll pull that in. So you see how easy-ish this is going to be, because we're simply just kind of like lining our stuff up. We're just looking at where it is in this picture, where it is in that picture, and then just moving these into that spot. Now some of these we can't see, like this is the back of the head. Use your imagination where that would be. This is going to be the ear. I'm not doing the ear on these, so I'm just going to go like where the base of the head would be. This is the back of the head, so probably like that. I'll probably adjust it in the other view. Let's see where this is at. Probably about here. This is the forehead, so I'll just scoot that over here. This is another forehead, so I'll scoot that there. This is another forehead, scoot that there. The back of the head. There's a lot of foreheads. Alright, so now I'm going to jump to perspective. So I'm going to switch to my one view and make sure I'm in perspective. Then I'm just going to make sure everything's flowing nicely. If I saw that one of these points, that maybe I moved it too far, maybe I moved it down, whatever, I'm just going to make sure everything looks like it's flowing nice. And it looks like it's pretty good. Everything looks like it's on a nice little flow. If I hit 3, you'll see that the head no longer looks flat on the one side. Now we're actually getting the shape of the face and the shape of the head out of this. So now I'm going to go in and extrude the neck down. So the neck looks like it's consisted of this and this. If I jump to my side view, I can definitely see that's where the neck is coming out here, and that's where the neck is coming out there. So I'm going to grab those two, I'm going to extrude, and I'm just going to go to the move tool and just pull that down. Okay, and then I can grab my vertices and just move these back here like this. This is going to come like that because that's that muscle that we have. Yes, autosave. That's how many times I wouldn't have saved. That's how bad I'm at saving. Let's go and insert another edge loop right down the middle of this. Insert an edge loop right there. And let's scoot that in here. That's going to be there. This is going to be here. Okay, now when we extruded, we got this. We got a couple extra faces right here on the inside. So I can just delete those. Don't need those. Alright, so now we can take a look and see this is definitely coming along. It's starting to look like a human head of some kind. So we'll just keep working on it. So now what I need to do, let me jump back to my side view, is you'll see that we don't have certain features inside here. Like one is the nose. We don't have the nose pulled out right here. I should definitely get something there so I can pull the nose out. I also don't have the chin. I should definitely get something so I can pull the chin out. So I'm just going to add a division for the chin and just pull that out. Notice how I'm tweaking everything. I add my 1 point and then I go through and I tweak all the points inside here. It's never going to be just like add a point and leave it there. You have to add it and tweak it, add it and tweak it. Okay, I think I'm also going to grab this back here and pull that out. There we go. And I can emphasize that further later on. Okay. Now notice the difference between 3 and 1. See how 3 or 1 is right on the side of the head, and then when I switch to 3 it's a little bit off. Leave it off, okay? Because as we add divisions, this is going to get closer and closer and closer to what that end view looks like. All right. So I don't want to add too many divisions, or I don't want to. This is what people do: is they go to 3 and they say, "Well, these aren't touching," and they grab these and pull it out. Well, that's the wrong thing to do. We leave it as 1. Make sure that 1 looks good, and then we should be good when we get to that final product. We just have to trust that it's going to do that. Let me see. I want to get rid of this. I really don't like this little edge here. I'm going to get rid of that. And then I'm going to use the multi-cut. I guess I didn't have to get rid of the edge. Use the multi-cut and cut around this thing. Oops.
Well, why did you multi-cut instead of just doing it?
It wouldn't let me do an edge loop because I deleted the vertices there. So there we go, kind of putting that in there. Yes, sir. It will. There's going to be, on this one, there's definitely going to be more cleanup than there was on previous parts. So we will have to clean up some of these pieces and make sure that's nice and neat. There we go. So now I switch to this view, and you can see how now 1 and 3 are a bit closer together. Okay, and it still looks pretty decent like that. All right, so now here is the triangle. There's a triangle right here, and there's no triangle in the back. Okay, so I need to get rid of that triangle there, so I need to figure out a way to do that. So if I go to, let's say, this, oh, I deleted that, and I see if there's any way that I can rework these. So let me go back to my Internet Explorer. And this is a common thing that I'll do, is I'll look up head wireframes. And then by looking at wireframes, you can kind of see how a typical head wireframe is supposed to look. So as these come up like this, you can see how they're kind of like splitting out. Where on this one, they're just kind of like, right now, it's just going up. So I can probably pull this out a little bit, pull this out a little bit like that. I may actually be able to delete that one and then maybe use the multi-cut. Alright, that gives me another triangle there. There we go. I just deleted those extra edges there, and now I don't have that. Now I have quads all over. Quad, quad, and quad.
Why didn't you want to triangles?
because it'll create a weird like little pinch or a poke inside the skin. So where it's nice and smooth, or should be nice and smooth, you'll get a little dot in there. Alright, so that's looking pretty good right there. I think I'm going to make this a little bit wider here. This is where the forehead area is. Oops, that's the nose. And then I'm going to pull this up a little bit more. Let me go back to my front view. Pull it up some. There we go. Alright, so that's looking pretty decent. Alright, so now we need to go in and put in the eyes and the mouth. And these are going to be tricky areas. It's typically a good idea to maybe duplicate your object, put them on a new layer, and then hide that layer, just so you have that saved in case you mess up and need to go back. So I'm going to go to my front view. I'm going to go to wireframe. I'm going to look where the eyeball is. The eyeball is about here. So I'm going to insert an edge loop. That's not what I wanted. And I'm going to insert an edge loop right about there where the center of the eye is. Okay. And I'm going to also insert an edge loop going horizontally where the eye is at. Right about there. Alright, hold on, my edge got disappeared. There we go. Okay, so I have this little dot right here. This dot is essentially like the center of my eye. So what I need to do is draw a little shape around here that would represent where that eye is going to be at. So I'm going to grab this vertex. I'm going to hold down Shift and right click. Now when I do a component and I Shift right click, it pulls up menu items specific to that component. So this is all stuff specific to vertices. So I'm going to chamfer it. And when I chamfer it, look what the shape it gives me. It gives me this shape that looks very similar to an eye. So now I can just go into this and just kind of move. Come on. Move these points in line with where I want that eye to be. Okay, and just like the rest of the head, I'm getting the extremes of it. Let me pull that out a little bit. Pull that out a little bit. And then I think I'm going to pull this up a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so now that I have this, I need to add a little bit more divisions. It's not round enough, or it's not going to be round enough if I don't add some more divisions. So I'm going to use multi-cut and just kind of cut this thing opened. And have this go back to here. Maybe I'll just have that go back to there for now.
You just turn like those surrounding squares like into quads?
Yes. There you go. So now I have this shape of the eye, and what I can do now that I have this like circular shape is if I go to edge loops, look at how I can insert an edge loop going all the way around this thing.
Nice.
Okay. So cool, that works good. Now I can take this shape here, and I'm just going to extrude it and just stick it in his head a little bit. All right. Now that doesn't give me a good shape of an eye because if you look at it, it's pretty flat. If I hit 3, you know, we get this, which, you know, kind of looks like an eye, but it looks kind of odd. So it's always best to, what was that?
Kind of alien.
Yeah. It's always best to throw in an eyeball here. So this is where you can start to customize it some if you want. I like to save all my customizing for later. Just get a nice base head that can be very generic for use for anything, and then I can customize it how I want later. So I'm putting this eyeball here. Come on. Like that. I can use even my side view to kind of line up where that eyeball is going to be. And I probably got to push this back some. There Up a little bit. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is you'll see that it doesn't intersect correctly. Like, obviously it just doesn't line up. So what I need to do is I need to grab some of these points. So I'm just going to grab like this section here and just pull that section forward until it looks like it's sitting on the eyeball itself. This eyeball could probably be scooted over just a hair. Come on. There we go. Looks better. And I think I'm going to actually switch to edges just so I can select the edges, pull these out. There we go. So now it's going to look like it's nested right inside there. Cool. Now what I can do is go in and add some more divisions. So I'm going to go to my edge loops. I'll add another division here, maybe another division there. Yes. Thank you, autosave. And then I can start to tweak what this shape is looking like. So now I'm giving it just a little bit of eyelid. I'm not really liking this division here. I don't know why that's there. Just delete that. Everything else looks good. Alright, so now I have some sort of eyelid on there. I need to tuck it in. It's a little bit too far out here. So I switch back to 1. There we go. And I'm just going to move it in against there. This is why I like to use edges, because they're easier to just grab that row of edges and just push that whole row of edges in. There we go. So now we have a very generic looking eye just kind of sitting there. And we can enhance it further. We can add more shape to this, like pulling this up, pulling that up, pulling this out. That gives him more of like an eyelid on top. We can shape this further by adding some more divisions here, or some yeah, I think we need to add some more divisions. So I'm going to go to my multi-cut and just cut some divisions in here. There, there. Now I'm actually not too concerned about what happens on the inside of the eye, because I'm not going to see it. So now that I've drawn this in here, now I can grab these and kind of like scrunch that in. And now I'll get more of like a little tear duct thing there. Alright, so that's working for that. Now let me go and add a mouth to him. Okay, and the mouth is going to be added in a very similar fashion. I'm going to go in with my multi-cut though, that's going to be one of the differences. And I'm just going to draw out where the shape of the mouth is going to come. Now your mouth, the sides of your mouth, if you drew lines, they go up to like the center of your eyeball. So if I look at the center of his eyeball, that's where this line is going to be. So that's where I'm going to draw this line to. So I'm just going to add a couple divisions here, drop it there, and then come over to this side. It does, but again, because they're inside the mouth, it doesn't matter because we're not going to see it. Okay, so I'm going to jump to the side view, and let's go to wireframe. And then we can just kind of line these up. So this is going to be like the top lip. This is going to be down here. This is going to be the bottom lip. Oops. Stop. That's going to be like the line of the mouth. And then we can grab all of this stuff and just extrude and then just push it in. So I switch to the move tool and just push that in. And then I'm just going to grab these two faces on the inside. Every time we extrude by an open edge, it creates faces. So we just delete those extra faces. Alright, so now if we hit 3, you'll see we get this like weird mouth. Okay, so we just need to then develop the shape a bit more. So I'm going to go in with my edge loops, drop an edge loop in right about here, and then start to scale this in and start to shape what the mouth is looking like. So grab this there. You may have to jump to perspective just to kind of see where the edges are or where the faces are. There you go. And it definitely looks like a big cluster inside there, so we just got to move around. And then I'll add another edge loop inside here, right there. So now if I go and hit 3, you'll see how we now have some sort of mouth there. It probably needs to come out a little bit more. Yes, thank you. Yep, it definitely needs to come out more. Just because the underside of the eye is like way over here now. So we go back to 1, I grab this stuff, pull that out, and then make sure I pull these vertices out too. Now, if I wanted to hold this shape, because what's happening is it's like smoothing it out way too much, I'm going to need another division like up here to hold this shape a little bit more. So if I go to, oops, not that. I'm going to try this. I'm just going to grab that edge and then just do a bevel. Looks like it did an alright job. And this is a good opportunity too to be able to just grab these, hit 1, and then just start to tweak it. When you hit 3, it's easier to see the vertices, so you can always just grab them, then hit 1, and then move them where they need to go. So 3 so I can see it, 1, let me pull that down, 3 so I can see it. And this is the corner of the mouth, so these points can actually be like tucked together pretty much. And then I think I need to come in here and just kind of spread these out a little bit further. Oops, don't forget to. Okay. Now there's still some rough spots on here, even like this corner of the mouth. Still a little bit tricky to get into and tweak. So what I'm going to do, I also need to fix this. Let me pull that forward a little bit more. Oops. Pull this forward a little bit more, like that. And whatever happened here, let's pull that down. Pull that down. Okay. So another tool that I can use is under Mesh Tools, Sculpting Tools. And this is a good primer for when we go to ZBrush, because ZBrush is all about using these sculpting tools to add deformations, to add detail to it. So one of them is the Sculpt tool. So if I click on this, and I always click the option box, and then I start to sculpt on here, I'm just going to go and reset my tool and start to sculpt. You'll see that he just starts moving away. The default settings, for whatever reasons, are enormous. Like the brush size is 25. His whole head is like 10 at the very most. So I need to shrink this down to like maybe 1, and then I can actually see the brush on top of it. Maybe even like 0.25 or 0.5 would be good. There we go. And then I'll brush on here, and you'll see again it goes crazy because now the strength is up to 15. The strength being 15 is for a bigger object, not our little guy. So maybe like 0.25 here. So what this is going to do is it's going to sculpt the character. So it's going to allow me to basically use a brush to help pull out certain points of the character. So if I'm like, oh, I really want to just kind of push this side in or pull that side out, I can just click and drag and it'll help pull those points out. Now if I hold down Shift, it'll smooth out what I've just done. Okay, so for these areas like where the mouth is, I may want to hold down Shift and just kind of hit that a couple times just to smooth it out. And I can always toggle between 3 and 1 to see what it's looking like. Okay. Now I can also use Alt. Control. Control is a inverse. So Control will push you in. Now just so it's a little bit more apparent, let me save the scene here. Let me create a polygon plane or a sphere. That would be fine. Okay, and I'm going to add a bunch of divisions to this just so you can see how this tool works. So as I click and drag, a little bit more strength. There we go. You can see how it's pulling out the vertices for that surface. So instead of us having to go through and pull them out individually, we're using this brush to pull them out. If I use Control and drag, it pushes stuff in. If I hold down Shift and drag, it's going to smooth it out. And I probably need to crank up the strength of this a little bit more just to see the effect of the smoothing. And it's still pretty subtle. Let me make my brush bigger. Too big. Still too big. There we go. So now you can kind of see it smoothing out a little bit. Some of those areas that are really, really grainy are now becoming very, very soft. Okay, so that's what those tools can do. Now there's other ones inside here, like the smooth tool. If you just wanted to smooth, you can go right to it. Or you just wanted to relax, you could go right to that. They also have like a grab tool, which allows you just to grab points and just kind of pull it off there. There's a pinch tool, so it allows us to pinch stuff together. For this, we really only want to focus on that first sculpting tool just to kind of help smooth out some of those areas that are kind of blobby and chunky. That's all we're doing with it. When we get to ZBrush, then we'll be playing with a lot more of those tools. Alright, so now we'll hit 3. I think I want to add another division maybe right here. So let me insert an edge loop right about there. And then I'm just going to grab these points and just kind of pull them out a bit. You can see how subtly I'm moving these points because I just want to make sure that I'm keeping some roundness in there. There we go. So that's not looking too bad. I can probably still tweak this mouth a little bit more and pull this down some. So I'm going to grab this face and just pull that down. And what I don't want to do is go like this. Like if I intersect them and hit 3, you'll see that now it looks like they're touching. Well, that's not a good thing. We don't want anything to intersect like that. Keep it as close as we can to it without actually intersecting. And if I go and add another division, another edge loop right about here, and maybe right about there, you'll see how now that gap is a lot closer together. Okay, and then we can go through and kind of tweak some of these points just to get the smoothness back in there. There you go. So that looks pretty generic right there. Now for the nose, I can add some detail for the nose too. So if I grab, go back to the side view. If I grab these points, and instead of them being where the, just kind of sticking out like this, I brought them more into where the face is at. Like that. Okay, so this is basically like without a nose. And then I grabbed where the nose would be. I think I went too far on the one. Nope, that's good. And maybe even that one. And then I extruded it. Then I could just move this out. And then I can grab the vertices or grab the edges or whatever. And then shape this into where the nose is going to come out. And what the extrusion does is it gives us a nice edge from the shape of the previous faces to where the nose is going to be at. So now you see as I hit 3, it looks like it's actually like jutting out of the face as opposed to just being blended in with it. And then we can go in and kind of tweak some of these, like pull this out. Grab this, pull that out. And we don't need to add too much detail inside here because, again, inside of ZBrush, we'll be able to add that detail. And his forehead looks a little flat, so I'm just going to go in and pull that out a little bit. Even though his head is right there, it looks a little flat, so I'm just going to tweak it to how I want that to be. Yes. Cool. Alright, so that's a pretty quick generic-ish face. Now we need to get the other side back on there. We need to sew them together. We need to see how these two sides look together. So I'm going to go back to one mode. I'm going to go back to my front view, and I need to look at that center line. This line coming right down the middle here has to be perfectly lined up with it. If it's not, this isn't going to work. Or if I go by the nose and I see that I still have these faces here that I never deleted, that could be an issue. So I need to make sure I delete those faces. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to go to my edge. I'm going to double click this edge along the inside here. Double click it, come on. There we go. So that grabs all the edges going along the center line. So if I hold down X and I drag this arrow, that should snap everything in alignment so that they're all perfectly flat. Or I can go to my scale tool and drag this red manipulator right to the blue one. And that would also flatten out everything. So now I'm going to go to Mesh. I'm going to go to Mirror Geometry, option box. And we're going to go in the -X and say Merge. Then I'm going to hit 3. And I can look at the character and see where I need to tweak. Because obviously now that I have both sides together, I can see that the nose doesn't really look very good. It should kind of come closer together. So I need to tweak that. So I'm going to go into my edges, grab these two edges and just scale them together. Grab these two edges and just scale those together. And the reason I'm scaling them together is because that way it still stays symmetrical. Maybe this point in the nose, I'll just pull that one down. And maybe out a little bit. There we go. What else? I'm not really liking this. I may have to rework some of those divisions there. I may want to just pull these out. That might do some good. I'll also grab these and maybe scale those guys out. Yeah, and again, because it's kind of alien-esque, I mean, we get away with a lot. Like, if this was a human, that would definitely look odd on a human, but on an alien, we can get away with that kind of stuff, okay? Even the mouth looking kind of weird, we can get away with that because it's more of an alien-type shape. All right? So this is the first step, and the chin's going to bother me too. I need to make it a little bit broader. This is the first step in doing this, is to getting a good base mesh. Because once you have this, then you can use that for anything. I've seen people use just a sphere and sculpt out of a sphere. We're not at that stage yet. We need to start off with a good base and add detail to it that way. Okay, so this is my base head. I'm going to, just for fun, just duplicate that eyeball and stick it over there. There we go. That way it doesn't look too weird. All right, so I'm going to save it. I can delete these image planes because I'm done with the image planes. I'm going to go back to my front view. I just want to tweak a couple things here. This muscle that I drew in, that comes in right here, I want this to be a little bit more closer to the front. So I'm going to grab these and just kind of scale those closer like that. And then grab
like
these
it's
ones.
a ceramic head?
What do you mean?
Well, you didn't make it kind of look like a ceramic head.
Okay, I don't know.
Want the heads to have choosing hat museums. Jesus.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
That's the word.
Yes. Yeah, we're going for like just like that. That's as far as we're going to take this model. Okay, so something like this. And then of course, like the back of the head looks kind of chunky. I can go back there and pull points and move them and tweak them and do whatever. Okay? But this should get you a good start of this. So this is your first step, is to model a base head. Now it might take you 3, 4, 5, 6 times to model a good base head. You may have to start your model and then say, nope, it's a mess, and just delete it and start it again. Delete it and start it again. You'll get faster at it, you'll get quicker at it, you'll get more accurate at it, your final result will be better. And so when you go into ZBrush and you go into all these other tools to start working on it further, it'll look better, and that's what you want. So I'm going to save this as, so I know what it is, 02, and set this to base head. Cool. All right, so that's where you're going to take this next part. So once you're done with your drone, then you can start working on your base head. Okie dokie? Questions?